does an incredible job with all their courses, just extremely high quality. We just rounded up the last 1,000 years for Catholic Political Thought 101, and you don't have to have done that to do this modernity course. But it's also free, and we had 2,500 participants, 2,500 students from all over the world for this last course. It was incredible, and it gave perspective, because we in the United States constantly are referring to ourselves, we're the most narcissistic country on earth, and we think that all politics revolves around ourselves, and in some respects it does. But it was very helpful to have students, to hear from other students, not just to hear from the teacher, but to read the texts over millennia, and to also hear from your fellow students who are in different countries who are facing different problems. And so really, really a fascinating dynamic in the course is that you're not just getting me and the text I select, but you're getting 2,500 students, or who knows how many people will register for this one, but because it's not limited. But it is limited in time, because the registration closes on the 13th.
Okay, so we got you in time, though. We got you in time that people can sign up, and I hope people will, because it is. How should I say this? I do sense among some of us Christians, actually among everybody, a kind of almost panic about politics now.
Totally.
Like, good Lord, what do we do? It seems like every election, everything's on the line, and it's always apocalypse at 100%. So it seems to me that some reflection on who we are as Christian people, what we've thought about politics before, will give us some guidance for the future.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of reasons for despair. There's a lot of reasons for political despair. But I think the Catholic in the world, whatever they're doing, whatever state of life, has to be a beacon of temporal hope as well as eternal hope. We have to be in the public square. We have to be in our families saying what right order is, because if you don't know what right order is and you can't state what it is, then it'll be very difficult for you to understand what wrong order is.
Dr. Chad Pecknold is our guest. We do have to take a quick break. There are folks on the line. We're talking politics and Christianity. It is the subject of the hour, of the week, of the month, of this decade. 888-318-7884.
Catholic Answers Live.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects homebuyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
One of the reasons we should go to Mass is because, if you look in the Catechism, you will see the fruits of Holy Communion. And these are remarkable things that we can receive at every Mass that we attend. We encounter the risen Lord, and He shares something of His divine life and love with us.
The Holy Sacrifice of the Mass, live from the EWTN Chapel, every morning, 8 Eastern, on EWTN Radio and Television.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I am Cy Kellett, your host. I'm so glad we often do this. I don't know why we do this with the Institute for Catholic Culture courses, which are just great. I mean, I just am such an admirer with we always have the professor on like 2 days before the class registration closes. So sorry about that, but sign up. This is a great opportunity. Catholic Political Thought 102, Modernity and the Common Good. Our guest, Dr. Chad Pecknold, is the instructor of the course. You can get it at instituteofcatholicculture.net, or just type in Institute of Catholic Culture and let Google take you there, and you will get there. 888-318-7884 is the number. 888-318-7884. So, I mean, because this is what you teach, this is what you write about, do people like kind of pressure you to answer the question of the moment, which is which candidate, which party? We have a lot of people who are experts, that you can't be in this party or that party. I mean, and people will just tell us, you can't be a Republican because immigration. You can't be a Democrat because of abortion or whatnot. Do you get those questions, and how do you deal with them? How do you kind of fend for yourself when you're faced with that?
I used to get those questions a lot more, Si. That was a very common question for a long time. But I think we're at a particular inflection point in our country in which we have, I think most Americans are very fraught about politics. They don't.
Yeah.
They're not certain that all the certainties that they had are being questioned.
Right.
And so I think I hear those kinds of questions far, far less. I think there's a kind of disorientation, a political disorientation that's going on right now, a kind of sorting and separating, and it causes people a lot of anxiety, and they're looking for. They know that things are bad. Everybody knows that things are bad. And they know that things are failing badly. There's no one who doesn't know this. And so the question is you tend to get more special pleading for this or that view in terms of how could we get out of this mess. And so you'll get special pleading for this way out of the mess or that way out of the mess. That's the kind of question I get more often now.
That's a very interesting formulation, because I think I'm very sympathetic to that. The primary question is, we're in trouble. How do we get out of this trouble?
Totally.
Not about party or anything. Just like, what is the direction out of this? We got every single line full. We okay if we go to phones?
Good
All right.
for me.
Dr. Chad Pecknold, our guest. Let's go to Caleb in Lincoln, Nebraska, listening on Spirit Catholic Radio. Caleb, we're glad you're here. Go ahead with your question.
So it's become increasingly clear to me that democracy has been a failed experiment. But when I indicate to people that I'm kind of an authoritarian, it kind of freaks them out a bit. So I'm wondering, what's the best way to soften the blow to people that we should return to more traditional forms of government like monarchy that the church has approved of and promoted over the last couple centuries?
Yeah, I mean, I think I sympathize. Liberal democracy is actually very authoritarian. You look at the vax mandates; those were very authoritarian, and so the reaction to authoritarianism on the side of the liberal is often gaslighting, because they're often quite fine with authoritarianism, and so there's that problem of how do you deal with people who are actually themselves more sympathetic to authoritarianism than they will admit. It's just not your authoritarianism, and so we have a kind of Thrasymachus is this character in the Symposium and in the Politics that Plato talks about, who says might makes right, basically. And we kind of have this dynamic of everybody tends to think that might makes right, and this is part of the problem of our modern political disorder. And the question of monarchy is certainly approved in the church's tradition. How to make monarchy more appealing. I think one way is to talk about how monarchy itself is something which arises from with the consent of the people. The people can choose a king, and once the people choose a king, then they choose a king who is wise and who has the interests of the common good and who they trust, and that you can actually choose to give power to a ruler who is going to use it well. And so I think you can begin to shift the conversation from political forms to questions of how do human beings in political communities regard power. Do we regard power as this horrible thing that no one should ever wield, because it's just going to corrupt them absolutely? I think that's the Protestant view of power, that power is just so utterly corrosive and corruptive. Or are we going to think about power in such a way that we actually want to set up a structure in which power is ordered to making virtue easier, making it easier for families? I'm often tempted to turn to Hungary, where power is being used very benevolently to help family formation. We're having this whole conversation in America about college debt. Well, the Hungarians say, we'll forgive part of your college debt every time you have a baby. You have a baby, we'll forgive a portion of your college debt. Now, that's using power in order to make it easier for families to form, which thus returns to the good order of the country. Now, that's using power in such a way that you don't feel that it's being misused. And authoritarianism is always this idea that the power is going to be misused. But I think you can't let you can't let that be the enemy of the good. You can't let some misuse of something mean that you never use power to order things of good. So now we have senators who are currently working on bans on pornography. That's a good use of power.
Yeah.
And we should think that power is a good. It's a good that God has given us, and that we're actually accountable to God for our use of power. That's a far more Catholic way of thinking about power. Not that power is always bad, so it's always authoritarian and we should always refuse it. If I say Catholics should seize power, everyone freaks out, just like the caller says. But in a sense, that is what Catholics should do. Catholics should wield power in a way which reflects divine governance and governs in the way that the goodness of God would govern, which is always going to be for our good.
The number is 888-318-7884. If I may just follow up very briefly on Caleb's question, because he contrasted democracy and monarchy. Yeah. As someone who thinks about this and has thought about this for decades, is there any possibility that there are forms of government that have not been named or invented yet, and that maybe the future is not about picking from something that exists now, but actually being creative about creating new forms of ways to govern ourselves?
I mean, yeah, that's a great question. I mean, on some level, the forms are sort of set, and this has been set since Plato: the few, the one, and the many. You're going to have monarchy, and you're going to have aristocracy, and you're going to have polity. Now, the illness of all of those is the opposite. So the illness of monarchy is tyranny. The illness of aristocracy is oligarchy. Corporate culture is totally oligarchical.
Right.
What's the illness of polity for Plato? Democracy. And so, but that's our founders did not set out to form a democracy. They formed a republic. Now that was a form. Republicanism is a form. Now you could begin to talk about whether there's many different kinds of republicanism. That's absolutely true. And then you could say, are there creative ways in which we could rethink our republic? And I think that's absolutely true.
Okay, that's very very helpful again.
So at the formal level, you're not going to change things very much about the one, the few, and the many, and about what good order and the illness afflicting it is. That's going to be fairly static throughout time because it's just true. What you're going to have is, innovation. Political innovation is possible within those forms, and thinking about what could we do to renew America? What could we do? Would it be different if we began to remember the way in which the Spanish and French crowns brought missionaries into this country and named cities after saints? Would that change how we narrate ourselves as a country? Right there, you're already talking about rethinking, providing a different vision for your country without sort of revolution, without destroying things.
888-318-7884 is our number. Dr. Chad Pecknold is our guest. I will get back to the phones as we come back. There is one line. I think there are probably two lines open as we head into the break. I do want to suggest that you check out you can check out this particular course that is about to begin. The registration will close at the end of this week, Catholic Political Thought 102. But check out all the stuff they do at the Institute of Catholic Culture. It really is a magnificent undertaking, one that we have always tried to be supportive of and helpful to wherever we could here at Catholic Answers. Check it out, instituteofcatholicculture.net. We'll be right back with more on Christianity and politics. Are you ready to defend your faith in a world of unbelief? Join us at the 9th Annual Catholic Answers Apologetics Conference. This year's theme, I Believe in God. And it'll help you provide clear and charitable answers to atheism, agnosticism, and plain old indifference. Don't miss what promises to be the event of the season. Join us in San Diego from September 21st through 24th as we welcome our special guest, Dr. Scott Hahn, and an all-star lineup of great Catholic speakers. Spend quality time with your favorite Catholic Answers apologists and enjoy 4 days of fun, fellowship, and adoration of the Almighty. Seats are still available, but they're going fast. Visit CatholicAnswersConference.com or call 888-291-8000 to register. Enter promo code EARLY and save $50. That's CatholicAnswersConference.com.
Want to know more about the origins of the Catholic Church? Joe Heschmeyer explores the beginnings of Christianity in The Early Church Was the Catholic Church. Joe digs deep into the words and actions of those who lived right after the apostles to refute anti-Catholic claims of how the faith was lived back then. Order your copy of The Early Church Was the Catholic Church today at shop.catholic.com or get it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
What if the voice of your deepest doubts about Catholicism rose up in the form of a human being and challenged you to defend your most foundational beliefs? That's the task apologist Trent Horn took upon himself in his new book, Devil's Advocate, a dialogue with his own best objections against the faith that he professes and defends. You can stand up against your doubts, and Trent will show you how. Pick up your copy of Devil's Advocate today at shop.catholic.com or at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Do you have an important prayer need?
We'll pray with you tomorrow on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
On most of these EWTN stations.
And now back to Catholic Answers Live with Cy Kellett.
Welcome back. Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. Dr. Chad Pecknold is our guest. We're talking about Christianity and politics. You asked for it, you got it, and you're very welcome to call 888-318-7884. Before I go to the next caller, I do want to welcome some folks who have signed up for our pilgrimage in November to Rome. We've got the big flannel panel pilgrimage coming up to Rome. Chris Check will go. I'm going to go. Joe Heschmeyer's going to go. We'll do the radio show there. We'll have lots of great talks, and we'll just spend 8 days in the historic center of Rome, exploring and seeing churches that you won't see on your usual tour, and also doing the things that you got to do when you get there, like go visit the bones of St. Peter underneath the Vatican. I want to welcome Michael and Joyce, who just signed up, Justin and Sarah Ann Marie, also Robert, all of you. I'm looking forward to meeting you in Rome. If not before then, you can sign up by going to CatholicAnswersPilgrimage.com, and tomorrow's the last day of the big early sign-up bonus, so $300 off anybody who signs up by tomorrow. CatholicAnswersPilgrimage.com. Check it out. We'd love it if you'd come. CatholicAnswersPilgrimage.com. Again, lots and lots of people on the phones, so Dr. Pecknold, I think I'll just continue to go back to the phones, if that's all right.
All right, I'll try to be brief so we can get a lot in.
Okay, we'll go to Patrick in New York City, listening on Facebook. Oh, we have a good friend, Patrick, in New York City, and I think that's who this is. Hi, Patrick. Welcome.
Hey. Hi, Cy. Looking forward to seeing you in 2 months in San Diego.
Yeah, likewise. All right, go ahead with your question for Dr. Pecknold.
Yeah, and Professor Pecknold's a great follow on Twitter for everyone on Twitter. Yep, I keep reading about these labels, integralism and Christian nationalism, and I want to get a little definition of them from your point of view and some comment on how they relate to what we're talking about today.
Perfect. Yeah, those are terms which, kind of weren't in the water a decade ago. And it's worth asking why they're in the water. Why are these terms in the water? And I think one of the reasons these terms are so powerfully evocative right now, and they call people to arms in all sorts of ways, is because they're a reaction to a very virulent kind of political religion which is operative right now, which is progressivism. Progressivism is a very, very powerful political religion. And it has not only taken over our country, but it's taken over the world. And I think Christian nationalism and its kind of Catholic counterpart, integralism, are ways of saying, well, look, it's obvious that liberalism does not produce a neutral religious order. It can't be neutral about religion. And that's actually true. And so what arises from that is the conclusion, well, if liberalism can't actually manage a religiously neutral framework, if now we're on 50 years of pride parades, but now they're de rigueur and they're sponsored by AT&T or whatever, you have a very pernicious kind of civic religion. You light up the White House rainbow, and the question naturally arises, well, if it's so obvious now that we have false religion reigning over our polity, couldn't we have true religion? So I think that's the reason why those terms have come to light. Secondly, distinguishing integralism and various kinds of integralism, I should add. Integralism has become a disputed term in itself for a lot of reasons. And Christian nationalism is the Protestant side of that. I think one of the problems with Christian nationalism is that it actually goes back to the founding of liberalism itself, in which you will learn this in ICC. Catholic Political Thought 102 will learn about the early political liberalism and how early political liberalism actually was a Christian nationalism and working out a kind of modus vivendi for a Protestant Christian nationalism. And so my problem with Christian nationalism is not that it's bad to think Christianly about nations. It's good to think Christianly about nations and about governance, but that it's not a solution. It's not a way out of the progressive civic religion that we face now. And integralism may or may not, but it's, I think, a Catholic thought experiment around the very question of order.
What do you think, Patrick?
It's great. It's a start, and you've got me interested in taking the course.
Great.
Very good. It's easy to sign up, I know, because, you were just talking with Dr. Pecknold. I signed up, so I know you can do it. It's easy.
Awesome. I got
to take this course. I got to take this course. So, all right, on we go, Patrick. Thanks. Looking forward to seeing you in a few weeks here in San Diego. Tom in Omaha, Nebraska, listening on Spirit Catholic Radio. You are next, Tom. Go ahead with your question for Dr. Pecknold.
Thank you for taking my question, and I'll be as brief and clear as I can. And it's this. In the 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s particularly, and even later, up to right now today, there was, it seems to me that the Catholic Church and the clergy, especially in the industrial East Coast areas, substituted centering on Christ and so on for unions and socialism and so on and so forth, and it's held on even to this day. Mm-hmm. And I wondered what you thought about that. Now, let me give you an example. The most Catholic states, New York, Massachusetts, Delaware, and the rest of them, are the least pro-life.
Yeah.
The most Protestant states, Deep South, Utah, and the Dakotas and so on, are the most pro-life. So that came from somewhere. And I think it was due to the fact that a lot of these priests and clergy and all that back in that era, they didn't have they weren't very deep.
All right. Dr. Pecknold, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Rusty Reno once wrote a great piece on Ronner the Restorationist, and I love that piece because it's a way of showing how a certain kind of liberal Catholic lay or religious or priest came to understand that the Catholic idea of having harmony with the society got flipped, so that the Catholic in America, especially, and Pope Leo XIII talks about this in his critique of Americanism, that the American Catholic was tempted to find symmetry, to find harmony with the society. And when the society chooses contraception, then we find harmony with that. When the society chooses abortion or gay marriage. I heard after a Bergefell, I heard a very prominent cardinal say, well, that's the law of the land now. That's there's a certain kind of American Catholic mentality which conforms itself to the society immediately, rather than to say, actually, you're going in the wrong direction. And the Catholic faith has wisdom, has light for you to tell you how to turn around, because you're going in a dangerous direction. I think that is what Leo warned about in 1899. He warned Catholics about that in his treatment on the heresy of Americanism, which is just this tendency to want harmony with a Protestant country that's going in the wrong direction.
Tom, thank you. I appreciate that question very, very much. Off we go to Kansas City, Missouri, watching on YouTube. Maya in Kansas City. Maya, thanks for waiting. Go ahead with your question for our guest, Dr. Chad Pecknold. Maya? Oh, hang on, Maya. Somebody pushed the wrong button. Don't know how that happened.
Oh.
Go ahead, Maya.
I'm a little bit confused because my understanding of this conversation moves more into the area of theonomy mindset, and my concern with that is the idea that that man is capable of living under a natural law or natural religion. The closest we ever got to that was after the founding fathers jumped in and said, we're going to build this country based on commonalities, moral commonalities. We all believe in A, B, C, or D. That's about the closest to what you're talking about that I can think of as far as natural law or moral law. The whole idea of this, of what you're talking about, reminds me a great deal of the dominion theology. Okay, and I'm not sure if it's even biblical, the idea that we can put these two together and expect any kind of peace.
Okay.
I mean, right now what I'm looking at here...
Be sure to register your copy of Sam at www.spatialaudio.com. You'll feel warm and squishy inside once you do.